August, I guess, and so things got pretty bad. We didn't have too much to eat, and there were a couple of winters that were cold, and we didn't have any coal to burn.
Where was your father during this time?
I guess so. That's right. That's a good point. Yeah, he was sent into Guadalcanal, which was the first so-called American offensive during World War II. So I don't know. I guess it lasted some months or whatever. So he was in Guadalcanal, and then after that, he also was part of the invasion of another island in the Pacific, but I can't remember the name of the island. I know it wasn't Iwo Jima, so it was maybe, let's see, there was Kwajalein and some other one.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, he was involved in two of the islands in the Pacific, Guadalcanal and this other one. And then by that time, of course, he was one of the older guys because he got in, he was probably about 25 or something. And by 1941, he was in his 30s. So, and he was a guy that did sort of mechanic type work, maybe fixing Jeeps or anyway. So he was sent back to San Diego they had a big Marine Corps recruit depot in San Diego, and so I'm not sure what he did. And he met a woman whose parents, both of them were doctors, and I guess they must have fallen in love or whatever. Anyway, he obviously saw, like a good life for himself. And so after the war was over, he sent us a letter saying that he wanted a divorce. And of course my mother couldn't do anything about it because there was no way she could get in touch with the judge in San Diego or whatever. So anyway, they eventually annulled the marriage. In fact, I remember in the letter they specified that the Russian Orthodox Church was not a recognized church, so the marriage was not valid. So they annulled the marriage.
It wasn't recognized by who?
Yeah, not recognized, I don't know, by the judge in San Diego. You probably never heard of them. Anyway, they got married, and I'm not sure what year they got married, but in 1949, the communists who were fighting the nationalists in China defeated the nationalists who took off for Taiwan, and they came into Shanghai in the beginning of May 1949. And luckily at that point, let's say I was 15 and I had finished school. I'll get to the school in a little bit. So I was trying to figure out how I was going to get to the United States. I had an American passport by then, but there was no the American consulate in Shanghai also took off before the communists got there. And so I was trying to figure out some ways of being able to come here. My mother suggested that we could go to Russia. Of course, I spoke Russian, and all of our friends were Russians. And, the only problem was that I had gone to this school that was taught in English. So, so I could read and write English, but I only spoke Russian and I could understand Russian. And I couldn't read Russian and I couldn't write Russian. So I wasn't too hot on the idea of going to the Soviet Union. But actually, probably at the peak of World War II, there were probably something like 40 or 50,000 Russians living in Shanghai.
Wow.
And so I would say that about half of them went back to the Soviet Union, and half of them immigrated to Australia, Brazil, Canada, and the United States also. So, but lo and behold, in the beginning of 1950, I get this 3 or 4 lines from my father saying that they've got this house and would I like to come and go to college. I got if you read the thing, you get the impression he didn't even know how old I was, but anyway, that's okay.
This is when you were around 15, or you had just started
I was, school? By the time I got the letter, I was almost 16, I think. So after all sorts of roaming around, and I still had my American passport, he and his wife were able to arrange for me to get a boat to come to the United States. So I had to, I guess it was about probably mid-October of 1950, I had to take a train. One of the first things that the communists did was they shut down the big port in Shanghai. They just didn't want to have any communication with the outside world. So I had to go by train by myself to Tientsin, which is a port in the northern, close to Beijing. I stayed in a hotel for a couple of nights, and then there was a small boat with, I guess there was another American person, and they took us off to the ship, which was, outside of the port of Tientsin, and got on the boat, and it was a freighter. They only had about 8 passengers, and so that was kind of nice. And, but it took a long time to get to, because we stopped in 3 ports in Japan. And then after that, they took off for San Francisco. And my father and my stepmother met me in San Francisco, and we drove down to San Diego. And I guess I was still 16, and I started college at San Diego State. And graduated in 1954. And I had good grades and so on and so on. So I went to graduate school in Berkeley in 1954. So anyways, that about enough, or you want me to say a few more things?
Well,
okay, I guess I can, I can talk about, Robin and I met in 1955. She was an undergraduate and I was a graduate student, and we got married in 1956, and in 1958 I got a fellowship to go to Denmark, Niels Bohr Institute, and so we went there. In the meantime, I had gotten a job here in Oak Ridge. So in 1959 we arrived in Oak Ridge and settled down. So anyway, I think that you at least have the kind of a general background of what my early life was like.
Okay.